Most people think they can easily spot a manipulator. They imagine someone loud, pushy, and obvious. But here's the shocking truth. The most dangerous manipulators are not the ones who shout. They're the ones who smile at you, act friendly, and slowly twist your emotions until you don't even realize you're being controlled. Think about it. How many times have you trusted someone, only to realize later that every choice you made was actually in their favor? Manipulation is not always loud. Sometimes it's silent, invisible, and hidden in plain sight. And that's exactly why most people fall for it. But there is one character who seems completely immune to this kind of control. Ayanokoji Kiyotaka from Classroom of the Elite. He never raises his voice. He never rushes to prove himself. And yet, he cannot be manipulated. Instead, he studies others like pieces on a chessboard. And somehow, he always sees through the game. The reason Ayanokoji is the perfect case study is because he doesn't abruptly win through aggression. He wins through understanding. Where others get caught in emotional traps, he stays calm, detached, and untouchable. He shows us that the best way to defeat manipulation is not to fight harder, but to stop giving manipulators what they need most: your reactions. And here a case where things get interesting, because the same tools Ayanokoji uses in his classroom can protect you in real life too. From the friend who always twists situations, to the coworker who tries to use you, to the subtle manipulator who makes you doubt yourself, you can learn to defend yourself without ever becoming manipulative. That's exactly what we're going to uncover in this video. The hidden strategies that will make you immune to emotional traps, expose manipulators before they can control you, and give you the kind of psychological armor that very few people ever develop. So if you want to learn how to protect yourself from manipulation, subscribe right now, because the strategies you are about to discover can change how you deal with people forever. There's one thing about Ayanokoji that almost nobody notices at first. It's not his intelligence, not his strength, and not even his ability to plan ahead. It's something far quieter. A silent move that allows him to see through the masks people wear and spot manipulators before they even make their first move. This move is so subtle that most people miss it. But once you understand it, you'll realize why manipulators can never truly control him. Because while everyone else gets pulled into games of deception, Ayanokoji simply waits. And in that silence, he sees everything. Think about how dangerous this really is. Most of us react instantly. When someone pushes, we push back. When someone accuses, we defend ourselves. And when someone flatters us, we lower our guard. But Ayanokoji doesn't do any of that. He does something completely different. Something that feels unnatural at first, but once mastered, becomes the ultimate shield against manipulation. This silent move flips the power dynamic without a single word. It forces the manipulator to reveal themselves. It makes them uncomfortable, exposes their weakness, and destroys their ability to control the outcome. And the best part, you don't need special training or years of experience to use it. You can apply it in your daily life, at school, at work, even in personal relationships. And suddenly, people who once had control over you will lose their grip. But here's the catch. If I tell you what this move is right now, you'll underestimate it. You'll think it's too simple. Because on the surface, it looks like nothing. Yet in reality, it's the very reason Ayanokoji is untouchable. So instead of revealing it immediately, let's build the foundation first. Let's understand why manipulators succeed and why most people fail to defend themselves. Because once you see the patterns, the exact traps manipulators use, you will understand why this one silent move is so devastating. By the end of this video, you'll know how to recognize manipulation before it even begins. You'll understand how to use the same strategy that makes Ayanokoji impossible to control. And once you master it, manipulators will no longer see you as an easy target. They'll see you as someone they can't touch. We'll come back to this powerful trick soon. Picture this, a classroom filled with noise. Students are shouting over each other, trying to grab control of the conversation. One person makes promises he doesn't intend to keep. Another spreads rumors to make someone else look weak. Someone else pretends to play nice, but behind the scenes, they're twisting alliances for their own benefit. It's chaos. Everyone is desperate to win, desperate to be seen as powerful. This is the world of Classroom of the Elite, a world where manipulation is the real currency, and every interaction is a test of control. Most students don't even realize they're being played. They get pulled into arguments, they react emotionally, they get trapped in the webs others weave, and by the time they notice, it's already too late. The manipulator has already won. Now look at Ayanokoji. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't argue. He doesn't even try to prove a point. While everyone else is fighting to be heard, he sits silently, watching. To the untrained eye, he looks passive, maybe even uninterested. But in reality, he's the only one in control. Because while others are wasting energy fighting, Ayanokoji is collecting information. Every reaction, every slip of emotion, every poorly chosen word, it all gives him data. He knows that the first person to lose patience loses power. And that's why he never moves first. Now let's make this relatable. Think about your workplace. There's always that one coworker who tries to take credit for everything. They twist conversations. They interrupt. They push others down just to stand taller. Most people get frustrated and argue back. They try to defend themselves. And that's exactly what the manipulator wants. Because the moment you react emotionally, you've already given them control. Or maybe it's not work. Maybe it's family. A relative who always plays the victim. No matter what happens, somehow, they flip the story so that you end up feeling guilty. You waste your time explaining, defending, proving yourself. And by the end, you're exhausted. While they quietly win. Or maybe it's in friendships. The friend who pretends to support you, but always plants seeds of doubt. They say things like, "Are you sure you can handle this?" Or, "I don't think they like you that much." And suddenly, you're questioning yourself, even though nothing was wrong to begin with. That's manipulation. And it works because most people react without thinking. But now, imagine responding like Ayanokoji. Imagine staying calm while everyone else is loud. Imagine not rushing to prove yourself, not letting emotions take over. Imagine watching, listening, and letting others reveal more than they intended. Suddenly, the manipulator's power collapses. They thrive on pulling you into their game, but when you don't play, they lose. That's the secret. Calm detachment is immunity. The moment you stop giving manipulators your energy, you starve them. They can't twist your words if you refuse to fight. They can't control your reactions if you don't react. They can't win if you don't give them the fuel they need. This is why Ayanokoji is so dangerous. Not because he shouts louder, but because he doesn't need to. He lets others burn themselves out while he waits, silent, patient, and untouchable. And if you can learn to do the same, manipulators in your life, whether it's at school, at work, in your family, or in your friendships, will find they can't control you anymore. Because you'll no longer be playing their game. Let me ask you something. Have you ever met a person who somehow always twists situations in their favor? No matter what the facts are, no matter how clear the truth seems, they manage to flip the story so that you end up looking wrong, and they walk away looking innocent or even smarter. Think about it. Maybe it was a classmate who never did the work, but always managed to convince the teacher they were the victim. Maybe it was a coworker who used your effort but made it look like theirs. Or maybe it was a friend who made you feel guilty for not helping them, when in reality, they were the one using you. How did you feel in those moments? Confused? Angry? Maybe you walked away wondering, how did I just lose that argument when I was clearly right? That's the power of manipulation. It bends reality until you start doubting yourself. And here's the hard truth. Almost everyone has experienced this. Some of us realize it instantly, others only much later, when the damage is already done. But the common thread is the same. We all have met that one person who seems to have a hidden ability to control outcomes. Now here's where I want you to pause and really reflect. Who is that person in your life? Is it a colleague? A family member? A so-called friend? The moment you can name them. The moment you can clearly identify how they so operate. That excess when you feel we already taken the first step toward breaking free. Because once you see the pattern, you can no longer be played in the same way. And that's exactly what Ayanokoji represents. While others get lost in the surface level drama, he sees through it. He recognizes manipulation for what it is, and instead of reacting, he disarms it by doing something completely unexpected. We're going to get into that strategy in just a moment. But first, think about this. How different would your life be if the next time someone tried to twist your emotions, you instantly recognized it and stayed calm instead of reacting? How many arguments would you avoid? How much energy would you save? And how much more control would you feel over your own life? That's the shift Ayanokoji has already mastered. And in this video, you're going to learn exactly how to make that shift too. Most people think that strength in conversation comes from being the loudest voice in the room. They rush to speak first, to argue, to prove themselves right. But the truth is, the moment you react too quickly, you're already giving away your position. Ayanokoji Kiyotaka never makes that mistake. He doesn't argue first. He doesn't try to outtalk others. Instead, he watches. Calm, silent, detached. And in that silence, something powerful happens. The manipulator exposes themselves. Why? Because manipulators rely on your reaction to fuel their strategy. They throw bait, and if you snap too quickly, they already control the game. But if you stay quiet, if you refuse to react, the silence forces them to keep talking, to keep pushing, and in doing so, they reveal exactly what they're trying to hide. That's why one of the sharpest truths in psychology is this. The first person to speak is usually the one exposing themselves. Think about a classroom debate. Everyone is shouting, defending, pointing fingers. In the middle of this chaos, there's one student who says nothing. At first, nobody notices him. But slowly, as arguments get weaker and emotions spiral, everyone starts looking for the calmest presence in the room. That's when control silently shifts toward the observer. This is exactly what Ayanokoji demonstrates in Classroom of the Elite. During group games and survival tests, when students are desperate to prove their loyalty, expose the traitor, or dominate the discussion, Ayanokoji does not jump into the chaos. Instead, he sits back, listens, and quietly studies every reaction. While others get emotional, he collects information. And when the time is right, he makes a single move that changes the entire game. Now, let's bring this into real life. Imagine a workplace meeting. One person always interrupts, always tries to dominate the conversation. They pressure you to respond instantly. If you push back too fast, you risk looking defensive or emotional. But if you stay calm, take a breath, observe patterns, and let them over-explain, you'll notice cracks in their argument. They'll contradict themselves. They'll reveal what they're really after. And when you finally speak, your words carry 10 times the weight. This strategy works in family conflicts too. When someone tries to guilt trip you or drag you into an argument, silence becomes your shield. Instead of immediately explaining or defending yourself, you wait. You watch. Often, the manipulator cannot handle the stillness. They start revealing their motives, or they get frustrated and expose their own game. Detachment doesn't mean weakness. It means refusing to let someone else control the tempo of your mind. It means recognizing that the person who stays calm controls the battlefield, whether it's a classroom, an office, or even a friendship. Here's a story to bring this alive. In one of the survival tests in Classroom of the Elite, every student was desperate to identify the leader of other teams. They debated, fought, accused, and made wild guesses. Ayanokoji, on the other hand, said almost nothing. He let everyone argue themselves into confusion. By the time the others were exhausted, Ayanokoji had already pieced together the truth without revealing his own role. He didn't outshout anyone. He outweighted them. That's the art of observation before reaction. Now let's break this into real, practical steps you can use starting today. Delay your reaction. When someone pressures you to answer immediately, pause. Take a deep breath. Even a few seconds of silence can throw off a manipulator's rhythm. Watch patterns, not words. Don't get distracted by what people say. Pay attention to what they repeat. Patterns reveal intention. Stay neutral until certain. Avoid showing your emotional stance too early. Neutrality protects you from being baited, and it gives you room to adapt once you see the bigger picture. By mastering this skill, you stop being the puppet and start becoming the observer. You'll notice how manipulators become uncomfortable around you, because without your reactions, their tricks lose power. And here's the twist. This single shift, waiting before reacting, doesn't just protect you. It changes how people see you. Suddenly, you're no longer the person who gets dragged into drama. You're the person whose silence makes others nervous. You're the one people look to when things get chaotic. That's not just defense, that's quiet dominance. Most people think the way to win against manipulators is by fighting harder, arguing louder, or defending themselves better. But here's the truth. The more emotional you get, the more power you hand over to the manipulator. Ayanokoji never makes this mistake. Instead of reacting with anger, he flips the situation with something far more dangerous. Calm, neutral questions. Why are questions so powerful? Because manipulators thrive in control. They corner you. They frame the conversation. They push you to play their game. But when you ask a simple question, without emotion, without fear, you force them to step out of control and into explanation. And explanation is where manipulators are weakest. Here's the shock line. Questions cut through manipulation faster than anger ever could. Think about this. When someone tries to guilt trip you, they expect you to justify yourself. When someone lies, they expect you to either believe them or explode in frustration. But when you simply tilt your head and ask, "Why do you think that?" Suddenly the pressure shifts. Now they are under the spotlight. This is Ayanokoji's silent weapon. Throughout Classroom of the Elite, when other students confront him, accuse him, or try to corner him, he rarely argues. He simply asks calm, neutral questions that make the other person explain their motives. The more they speak, the more they reveal, until eventually they've dug their own grave. Here's a mini scene to make this clear. Imagine a student accusing Ayanokoji of being the traitor in a group task. Most people would defend themselves passionately. "I didn't do it, you're wrong." But Ayanokoji, he tilts his head, eyes calm, and says, "What makes you think that?" Now the accuser is trapped. They either need to reveal their reasoning, giving Ayanokoji valuable information, or they start stumbling, showing weakness. Either way, Ayanokoji gains control without raising his voice. Now let's bring this into real life. Workplace example. A coworker tries to blame you for a mistake in a meeting. Instead of panicking or angrily defending yourself, you calmly ask, "Can you explain what led you to that conclusion?" Suddenly the spotlight is no longer on you. It's on them. If their claim is weak, everyone sees through it. Relationship example. Someone tries to emotionally manipulate you by saying, "If you really cared, you would do this for me." Instead of explaining or getting defensive, you softly ask, "Why do you believe that caring means this action?" Now the manipulator is forced to unpack their logic, which often crumbles under its own weight. Argument example. A friend twists your words in a debate. Instead of snapping back, you ask, "Can you show me where I said that?" This calm question exposes exaggeration and forces them to confront the truth. The beauty of neutral questions is that they disarm the manipulator without you even raising your voice. You're not fighting their fire with fire, you're taking away the oxygen. But here's the key. The power is not in the question itself. It's in the calm delivery. If you ask with sarcasm or anger, you've already lost the effect. But if you ask softly, slowly, with no visible emotion, the manipulator starts to sweat. Because they realize something terrifying. You are not playing their game. This is why manipulators hate neutral questions. They are designed to control, but questions break the frame and flip the pressure. And if you keep asking, calmly, patiently, they eventually run out of moves. Now let's get practical. Here are 5 questions you can keep in your arsenal against manipulators. Why do you think that? What makes you say this now? Can you explain what you mean by that? What outcome are you hoping for here? Where did you get that information? These questions seem simple, but in the heat of manipulation, they are like daggers. Because they reveal the truth, most manipulators don't have strong logic. They rely on pressure, speed, and emotional chaos. But when you calmly demand explanation, their entire strategy collapses. Now imagine this in your daily life. Instead of being dragged into endless arguments, you start using questions. Instead of reacting to accusations, you put the responsibility back on the accuser. Instead of falling into emotional traps, you create space. Space where you remain in control. That's what Ayanokoji does. And that's how you protect yourself without ever raising your voice. Because in the end, power doesn't come from shouting the loudest. It comes from being the calmest person in the room, the one who asks the questions nobody else dares to ask. Most people are terrified of silence. The moment a conversation slows down, they rush to fill it with nervous words, laughter, or excuses. But Ayanokoji? He turns silence into a weapon. Silence isn't weakness, it is psychological dominance. Manipulators depend on speed. They want to trap you in their narrative before you can think. But when you answer them with calm silence, the entire game flips. Suddenly, the manipulator feels the weight of their own words. They start second-guessing themselves. And the longer the silence stretches, the more desperate they become to speak, often exposing their real intentions. Look at Ayanokoji in the classroom. Chaos everywhere. Students shouting, pointing fingers, alliances breaking. Everyone expects him to argue, to defend himself, but he just sits there, expression blank, eyes steady. Seconds tick by. The silence becomes unbearable. One student panics and blurts out extra details. Another over-explains and reveals something they didn't mean to. Without speaking, Ayanokoji has already won. Now imagine this in your life. In arguments, instead of snapping back, pause. Count slowly in your head. Watch how the other person gets uncomfortable, rambling, exposing their weak points. In negotiations, if someone throws an unfair demand at you, don't rush to reject it. Stay silent, hold your ground. Most people cannot handle silence. They will quickly adjust their demand before you even reply. In relationships, when someone tries to emotionally manipulate you, saying things like, "If you really cared, you'd do this." Don't defend yourself instantly. Pause. Let silence make their manipulation echo back at them. Even in friendships, when gossip starts and someone tries to drag you in, silence protects you. You don't argue. You don't agree. You just sit still, and soon they realize you cannot be baited. Why does silence work? Because manipulators lose control when you don't react. Their tricks only function if you play their game. Your silence is like a mirror, forcing them to face themselves, and most people can't stand that reflection. Visualize this. 2 classmates trying to pressure Ayanokoji, throwing accusations at him. The camera zooms in. He says nothing. Seconds feel like minutes. They grow frustrated. One of them breaks and yells, "Why aren't you saying anything?" In that moment, they reveal their own weakness. Ayanokoji didn't just survive the attack, he dominated it, without speaking. Here's a rule you can use immediately. The 3-second pause. Anytime you feel cornered, pressured, or manipulated, wait 3 seconds before responding. It feels like an eternity to the other person, but it gives you control. Extend it to 5 seconds, and you'll see panic appear in their eyes. The lesson is simple. Most people waste energy explaining, defending, and arguing. But silence is control. You don't have to fight back. You don't have to explain yourself. Sometimes, the most powerful move you can make is no move at all. You think manipulators are strong? They're not. They only look strong when you react the way they want. Here's the truth. Manipulators don't control you. They control your reactions. The moment you stop reacting, they lose all their power. Most people confuse noise with power. They believe the loudest person in the room is the strongest. But power isn't loud. It's silent. The one who doesn't rush to explain, doesn't beg to be understood. That's the one everyone fears. Pause for a moment and think about this. The quieter you are, the more people project their fears onto you. They start wondering, what are you thinking? What do you know that they don't? Silence turns into intimidation. Another truth no one wants to hear. Manipulators survive only because people play along. The second you stop playing their game, they collapse. Just like Ayanokoji shows us, he doesn't fight, doesn't argue, doesn't explain. He observes, and suddenly the manipulator is exposed under their own weight. Here's a bold fact. Defending yourself too much makes you look guilty. Remaining silent makes them question themselves. And this is the most uncomfortable reality. Manipulators fear silence more than confrontation. Because confrontation is predictable. Silence? Silence is a mirror that forces them to see who they really are. So remember these pattern breaks. Manipulators don't control you. They control your reactions. The quieter you are, the more they fear you. Power isn't loud, it's silent. The first person to speak usually exposes themselves. And silence isn't weakness, it's dominance. Every one of these truths is a mental weapon. The question is, are you ready to use them? At this point, you've seen how manipulators operate. They twist words, they create chaos, and they force reactions. Most people try to fight back with more words, more noise, more emotion. And that's exactly what manipulators want. But here's the final lesson. The only way to beat a manipulator is not by fighting harder. It's by refusing to play their game. Think about it. Every manipulator is like a fisherman. They cast bait, provoking you, guilt-tripping you, twisting stories, just to make you bite. The moment you react, you're caught in their net. But Ayanokoji shows us a different path. He doesn't bite. He doesn't react. He lets the bait float until the manipulator exposes themselves. This is where true strength lies. Not in shouting louder, not in arguing smarter, but in holding your ground so firmly that the manipulator has nowhere left to move. And how do you do this? You master 3 simple tools. Observation, questions, silence. First, observation. When you watch without reacting, manipulators grow restless. They're used to quick reactions. But when you stay still, their own patterns expose them. It's like holding up a mirror. They end up revealing everything themselves. Second, questions. Calm, neutral, sharp questions. Instead of defending yourself, you ask, "Why do you think that?" Or, "What do you mean by that?" Questions corner them. They can't manipulate a question without tripping over their own lies. And third, silence. The most underrated weapon of all. Most people fear silence, but Ayanokoji embraces it. He lets silence do the heavy lifting. And in real life, silence forces manipulators to reveal their insecurity. They keep talking, keep explaining, keep panicking. While you stand calm, unshaken, untouchable. Put these 3 together, and you create the same aura Ayanokoji carries. Calm, detached, untouchable. That is why he cannot be manipulated, because he doesn't play the game in the first place. And here's the truth. When you master this mindset, you don't just protect yourself from manipulators. You rise above them. People start seeing you differently. Quiet, confident, someone they cannot read or control. Someone who doesn't get pulled into petty games. That's the real power. Not proving yourself, not reacting, not defending. Just existing in such calm strength that manipulators give up before they even try. So remember this final lesson. You don't beat manipulators by fighting. You beat them by refusing to play. Master observation, questions, and silence. and you'll carry the same unshakable aura that makes Ayanokoji untouchable. You've just learned the 3 tools that make you immune to manipulation: observation, questions, silence. And if you think about it, these aren't just tricks. They're the foundation of self-mastery. Because protecting yourself from manipulators isn't just about defense. It's about becoming the kind of person who cannot be shaken, no matter who stands in front of you. That's what Ayanokoji represents. Not just intelligence, but unshakable control. Now ask yourself, how different would your life look if you had this kind of control? Imagine walking into any room, whether it's work, family, or friends, and no one being able to pull you into their games. Imagine people respecting your silence, your patience, your calm presence. Imagine never again being drained by someone else's manipulation. That's the power you can build starting today. But here's the thing. This is just the beginning. What you've seen in this video is one side of Ayanokoji's mastery. The truth is, there are still deeper layers of control, strategies he uses that most people miss completely. And those are the exact strategies we'll uncover next. So here's what I want you to do right now. If you're serious about mastering your mind, if you're tired of being controlled by other people's games, then subscribe to this channel. Because every video here is designed to sharpen your awareness, strengthen your psychology, and make you untouchable in the same way Ayanokoji is. And I'll be honest, if you don't take this step, manipulators will keep winning. They'll keep twisting situations. They'll keep draining your energy. But if you do take this step, you'll start to see them clearly. Almost like you've lifted a veil. Their tactics won't work anymore. Their power will collapse the moment you stop playing along. That's the choice in front of you. Stay the same, or rise above. So if you want to master the same control Ayanokoji has, subscribe right now, because in the next video, we'll uncover the one trick manipulators fear the most. And once you learn it, you'll never look at human behavior the same way again. This isn't just entertainment. This is transformation. Don't just watch, become.